Hey, welcome to the second half of chapter 26. We're looking at romantic music as written for the orchestra and for chamber ensembles and choirs. Kind of the second half of what we started the other day, early romantic music. A lot of stuff to go, so we're just going to go right on in and get busy on this. I don't want the screen too, I want the whole thing right. Try that one. We're going to share sound, optimize for clip video, and see if that works. Boom, yeah. See, there we go. All right. All right, we left with the DA today, and the variations on how that has been done throughout history. And we're moving into Felix Mendelssohn, 1808 to 1847, are his years of existence, or 1809, I mean. So a young guy, really, when he passed away, but led a very productive life and some great music, along with his sister, Fanny, whom we really don't touch much at this point in our series. So, with pen and paper ready to go, or with the email opened up, let us commence. We're going to look first at his symphony. He did some classical romanticism, more classic in sound, because of the influences that he had with Beethoven and the Haydn stuff that he was studying. So most of his symphonies follow that classic model. And close my door. Sorry, wrong composer. Now we jump right into Symphony Number 5, his Reformation Symphony, which was completed in 1830, 1809 to 1830, 21 years old, about. His Reformation Symphony celebrates, of course, the Protestant Reformation, and does that in part by using the Einfestberg Luther choral as the final movement. When you hear that, you will recognize it. So I'm not going to give you a hint at this time as to what that is. We're going to listen to a little bit of the first movement. Yes. Here is that. Jump in the middle of this. Got the whole continent now. Is the Allegro Vivalci with the Okay, so the fourth movement, Einfestberg, which is really where the symphony gets its name, the Reformation Symphony. Turn your volume up a little bit on your. That he wrote, challenge. That's the development, using that same pattern of rhythmic pattern plus the interval pattern, but not necessarily the same notes all the time. Just kicking around and doing some different stuff. I don't know what this one is. I love this. Stop already. Stop. Okay. So that's symphony number 5. This is the Italian symphony number 4, which was published in 1833, a little bit after the Reformation Symphony. And it's his impressions on Italy, on a trip to Italy. That's why it's called the Italian. He's got a Scottish symphony from 1842, which is symphony number 3. I don't know who numbered these things. Symphony number 3, the Scottish symphony is kind of his reflections on the trip to the British Isles. And it said that he met a lady somewhere in there that was from the British Isles, maybe. And so that's why he wrote that. This is the Italian symphony. This is the final dance of that is in the form of a saltarello, S-A-L-T-A-R-E-L-L-O, saltarello, which is the feeling that we're going to get when we hear this. You can hear right off the bat the opening statement, which is a rhythmic motif in the horns and winds. And we have the music right for us right here. This is 3/5, 3/5, 3. It's the 4th movement of the Italian Symphony number 4. Pose. All right, moving right along. Move on. What was I doing? What did I do? Oh, Grout. I'm afraid of here. All right. Another one of his, probably one of his more famous pieces is Midsummer Night's Dream. It really came in 2 parts. He wrote his overture for that when he was 17 years old. And the overture is just, it's a kind of a long little piece, but it has this, sorry, you can read that stuff on Midsummer Night's Dream. And overture in the previous century and in the previous style in the 1700s had gotten to be that first piece of the ballet and opera, and was an opportunity to kind of preface all of them in like a trailer, give you an idea of what's coming up throughout the opera. So the overture might be a 5 to 2 minute piece that encapsulates snippets of all this. We still have that, like in a musical. If you've ever been in a school musical, the orchestra or the piano player will open the time with that overture, or the band might have played that as a prelude to the upcoming thing. Mendelssohn, in this case, and for this piece, extracted that, and you hear snippets of what might develop into a full opera or piece later on. But at this point, he's really just using that to depict the story that Shakespeare had written. Shakespeare wrote maybe 100 years earlier the story, the Midsummer Night's Dream, about Till Eulenspiegel and frolicking. We'll look more at that later on because somebody writes a piece called Till Eulenspiegel's something or other later. This one is Mendelssohn, and he starts that in 1826. Four chords that are the opening, and I probably need to talk a little bit about the rest. All right, I'll do that in just a second. Four chords that are kind of the opening and are pretty popular. When you hear these, like if I were giving you a drop the needle test, I would drop the needle right here. Then it goes right into a shimmering kind of string thing that, yeah. When you're in the bottom of one, five. Barely hear it. Get the idea. One more time for that opening sequence with the one stage. I missed this. The applause. The bow. Oh, thank you. Here we go. See if we can hear these a little better. All right. So that was the opening of that. Years later, like 17 or 18 years later, somebody had written a libretto based on the play by Shakespeare, and Mendelssohn completed the work as the accompaniment to that production, the stage production. And this movement was allegedly performed at the wedding of Queen Victoria's daughter, Victoria, and Friedrich of Prussia in 1858, and became what many young brides have played as they exit the building. For a young bride leaving the thing. We're going to move on. Yeah, that's the same thing. I'm going to figure this out one day. And there's the other one, the one that is interesting. Here comes the bride, big fan wine. Here comes the broomstick behind her. Broomstick. Here comes the bride. You know how it goes. Is actually the second movement from Tannhauser, I think by Wagner. We'll get to that later. That's later in the Romantic era. Woo-hoo! All right, so that's some classical Romanticism. Mendelssohn wrote piano concertos and violin concertos, all kinds of other stuff. He wrote the violin concerto in E minor, probably one of his most famous. In fact, it's popular with young kids. my, my daughter, Kate, performed that as a solo with the Oklahoma Youth Orchestra when she was a high schooler, whatever contest she was in to get that privilege. The first movement is doesn't have the exposition. The solo states the main theme right off the bat. The second movement is a romance kind of thing between the violin and the orchestra. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, the lightness of a scherzo, which is kind of a fast deal. We're just going to listen to a little bit of Hilary Hahn playing this. Hilary is not young anymore. She's probably in her 40s, but was a very young artist, started playing when she was 12 or 13 in venues with orchestras. And one of those current or modern day violinists who just lights it up. We'll watch a little bit of her playing this violin concerto. Oh, back, sorry. Here we go. On the second go back to middle. Ending. That we're just really 13 and a half minutes into the piece, and we're starting into that second movement without a break. We just move right into that. This concerto has been and then we go into Dante yourself just kind of walking something along. Most concertos, of course, are doing the 4-movement pattern. Third movement is a trio, a minuet, and the fourth movement will be a scherzo. Mendelssohn only does 3 movements for this, and it doesn't really stop. It just goes from one movement to the next. All right, so that's Mendelssohn. Robert Schumann is another popular composer of that time. If you want to listen, if you would like to listen a little more deeply to that violin concerto, that's Hilary Hahn. There, if you just Google and YouTube Mendelssohn violin concerto in E minor, you'll get 7 or 8 different performances by really great artists that you can listen to. Schumann had his year, what he called the symphony year, where he wrote several symphonies. The great C major, one of those, kind of copying and patterning himself after Mendelssohn. They were alive around the same time, communicated. They were in the same country at times. But he used one rhythmic figure, and you heard earlier when we were listening to the Symphony 5, the Reformation Symphony, and then we listened to the rhythmic pattern repetition is one of those things that these guys do. Symphony number 4 in D minor is a nice one of Robert Schumann. We're not going to listen to it, but here's the theme thing, and we're in F. And then that's the introduction, the theme. Then for that, we're not going to listen to Schumann right now, but he did some really great stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. We may be listening to some Symphony Fantastique. Yes, we are. No. Here we go. We're listening to Symphony number 4. Let's see what this is. Oh, in D minor. Symphony number 4 in D minor. We're going to listen for the first movement. And you can see the music. Listen to get this puppy going. No, way back here. Okay, we can do that. Here we go. Robert Schumann's Werk. Goethe is German for, well, it's some language over there. Langsam, Feindlich Langsam, which is basic. This is what he's playing, these playing for. This is the orchestral instruments listed along the left side. This is a development that has come into full use by this time. You see the Flaute, the obi, the clarinet in B, the Fagott, the corny, trombone. Let's go back. This is the flute, Flaute, flute, obi, oboe, clarinetti. Those are pretty obvious. The fagotti is the early name. It's what they used to call the bassoon. We can now call that bassoon, fagotti. Corny is the horn. We now call that a French horn. But for them, it was the corny in F. And in orchestration class, we get into those transpositions because you see a corny in F, a corny in D. They're pitched differently. They're different lengths of pipes. They're played. The playing is the same, but just the sound that comes out is pitched differently. Tromba is, by this time, trumpet. And then we have tromba in F, and we have the trombone, the alto trombone, the tenor trombone, the bass trombone. You can see the differences here. We go back up here to the flute, the oboe, and are both written in F. I think that's what that is for the oboe. The clarinet has one sharp, so that would be the key of G for the clarinet. The fagotti has the one B flat down here. Usually that's about right. Okay. Then where did I see it? Okay. Then we come down here to the trombone, trombone alto. This is going to be the alto clef. And you will have studied that in music theory. The tenor clef, the alto clef has the middle C as that middle line. The tenor clef has the middle C as that fourth line up or second line from the top. And then the regular or the bass trombone written in bass clef. Nowadays, very rarely do you see the tenor or alto trombone separated out like that. However, if you're a trombone player, you will do clef studies, which is a series like an etude, if you will, an etude that's written in this clef, and then as you're going up, it'll switch clefs on you, and then it'll switch clefs again. And but that's what there. Let's get rid of this. And then we have the violins, violas, cellos, basses. Now, another thing to notice is this. This, as you learned in music theory, is a stave. Each one of these separate lines is a staff, S-T-A-F-F. That's the 5 lines. And then the staves are that which are connected along this left side. And then every once in a while, you see this connecting. And when you see this connecting business here in the orchestral part, that just means that it's the same type of instrument. So these are both horns. Down here, the 3 trombones are connected. Down here, the violin 1 and 2, and then the cello and bass, which frequently in early music play the same thing. Notice that on this page, those are not listed. And as we go along, they're only listed on the first page. And then if you break for the second page, then you'll see. And we're going to continue listening for a little bit, and then we'll, no. There we go. I cannot read these right now. I mean, the meter change is marked on this page. And again, fortissimo, and then we come into the romance. Ziemlich, langsam, about 66. That's like 4 note equals 66. Have the instruments noted here again in the short form, and many playing, so we actually have 2 staves per page in this on page 17 of the watch. 47. Number I know is 47. Here's our 2 on something 4 note right here. Piano arco means bow. Hear that C and the longest line. solos march here, so when you come in after this sonata, hear the playing over the other strings. And we're going to skip to the scherzo, around 14 minutes, and 1 minutes of this. We're going to end here with 2 fermatas. Shift to 3/4. You see Stretch this out. You see that it's basically that same lot of patterns, just stretch it out without one here. Skip deep relative to we're going to come out the lines in here. Here's this. So Schumann is probably one of the most successful guys to write this kind of stuff. He's great fun to listen to, and it's so melodic. He also, Schubert and Schumann both write a lot of stuff. Schubert especially wrote a lot of songs that you might learn in a classic vocal session. Schumann wrote some of those as well. Melodic, catchy, easy to listen to, lots of fun. These guys also wrote chamber music, and when we talk about chamber music, and I know I'm running up on a lot of time for us, so we're going to flash through some of this stuff. When we talk about chamber music, we're talking about like string quartets, quintets, piano trios, horn quartets, or brass quartet or quintet, string violin, wind quartet. Chamber music is just stuff that really was written to be played in the parlor, written for somebody, for 3 or 4 people, friends to gather around and play those. Also, at some of the parties that they went to, they might hire a quartet to play the music for that. Some of you might have seen or done that yourselves. Modeled early on in the classic tradition with Mozart and Haydn as examples of that. Here's the string quartet in A minor is just violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello 1, and cello 2. And let's back up a second to see what this is. This is the Schubert string quartet in A minor. And that's what we're looking at here. Excuse me. He wrote lots of quartets, and it's not something new. Beethoven also wrote string quartets, quintets, piano trios. It's just these guys. Well, actually, these guys. String quartet in C major by Schubert is one of those that we'll listen to. Completed it really just about 2 months before his death, and he brought in the second cellist for that. The first movement is the sonata form, both in C major and then flipping to C minor, rather than going to the relative minor or of A minor. He stuck with that C chord and went to all that other minor when it's not. The exposition movement, the exposition that goes through 3 different keys: C, C, the key of E flat, and the key of G. Now, if you think about that, C, E flat, G is but a C minor chord. Using the harmonic structures to guide his composition process. This is going to be a little bit of that. The Janine Janson string quartet in C major, and you see the 2 gals over here playing violin. This guy's playing the viola, and then we have the 2 cellos there. I'm not rush to this, a lot of this, but here's it. it's kind of the motif, and she kicks it off, and then she follows in with it, and the viola comes in with it, and the cellists are over there playing away on melodic parts. And there's a part coming up pretty soon where the melodic material kind of flips over to the lower strings for a couple. That's a little bit of the Schubert. I have to say, oops, there we go. This may be the question. Oh, it's them. It's the beginning. I don't know what's the beginning. There they are. They're in the museum, so that's why they have that artwork on the walls. This is, I love to play quartets, quintets. I don't really like to listen to them. Great for putting on while you're studying, so that they can just be kind of like background. But I really prefer quartets or some of the later romantic work. The stuff, especially these guys in this venue, some kind of squeaky. Sorry, Jeanine Johnson quartet. I'm just telling you the truth. Mendelssohn was also a guy who did some of those using Haydn, Mozart, and Bach as models for his stuff. 3 piano quartets, violin sonatas, an octet, which is eight string players, 2 violins, 2 violas, 2 first, 2 second violins, 2 violas, and 2 cellos. And you can play that with bass instead of one of the cellos. String quartets in A minor, Mendelssohn, trio in D minor, another one, and then Robert and Clara Schumann, and a wife team that wrote chamber music, and they had their. So remember a few minutes ago when we were looking at some of his orchestral pieces, he had his orchestra, his symphony here, and then he has this quartet year. He just kind of devotes this period of time to writing chamber music, this period of time to writing symphonies. He had a period of time that he wrote vocal solos and so on and so forth. And it's, it's an interesting concept to just have that kind of discipline to focus in, hone in on one kind of thing. Piano concertos, Clara was inspired by some of the things that he wrote. Remember that he didn't have the longest life. She outlived him by quite a bit. And so she was able to write stuff after he was gone. The piano trio in G minor, we're going to listen to a little bit of it. Piano trio, piano quartet, piano quintet implies that the pianist is one of the players. And so in a piano trio, you have violin and a cello. And we'll hear just a little bit of the piano trio in G minor. So you hear listening, and we're not going to listen to the entire thing at all, but if you were to listen to the whole thing, you would hear snippets of kind of Baroque sounding music, which is Bach, some classic music, Bach, pre-Bach and Bach, classic music that kind of sounds more like Mozart or Haydn, and then you would hear the influences of Mozart. And the Baroque stuff really is kind of like a polyphonic treatment. Remember that in polyphony, you have different things going on at the same time. And they might line up every once in a while, nice and neat, at a point of arrival. But overall, it's individual parts. It's poly being many, phonic being sounds, many sounds. I'll listen to a few parts as we go along, but let's go ahead and get started on this. And let's let you see the piano. Page turn. listen to piano trios. And because of the time, we're going to go right. We're going to hear a different texture. Listen to pizzicato, listen to the texture that I do. Passage seems to going into minuet in classic style. Really hear the influence of Mozart in here. You got your pen and paper, you've got your pen and paper, or you got your email open. We haven't really talked about anything yet. So let's go ahead and write in here. Tell me essentially the instrumentation for a string quartet would be, generally speaking, 2 violins, a viola, and cello. And then tell me the characteristics of like a piano quartet, a piano trio. What instrumentation would be in, for example, this piano trio, and then if we were to write a piano quintet, which is a piano and string quartet, generally speaking, what would be the instrumentation of that? So now I'm going to pop on up to about 18, and we're going to listen to, it's going to lead into a kind of polyphonic section. Here it's homophonic. Again, one sounding together and homophonic sound. Yeah. And off of each other. So just the difference between something that is polyphonic and something that is homophonic. It's the same thing, and we're going to go on to the next slide. Okay, so split third movement, chamber music and classical tradition, blah, 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 blah. We're going to move on to choral music, and we're going to just zip through. We're not going to listen to much. We're going to amateur status. Remember that in our last session, we talked about orchestras becoming professional in the early 1800s, the London Symphony, New York, others. Choirs, not so much. In fact, still today, not so many choirs that are, in fact, it may have changed by now, but 10 years ago, there was only one vocal ensemble in the United States that was just a vocal ensemble, and that was Chanticleer, a men's 12 or 16 chorus out of somewhere in California. And all they did was sing, record, travel, and do their craft. Any other ensemble that you heard, they would come in and sing, but they might teach at a university, or they might be a doctor or a dentist or whatever their job is to make money. Societies here in town, the Canterbury Choral Society is one of those that does that. Some of you might remember Kevin Wilkinson as an associate conductor. Randy Ellison recently retired from that, so we'll see who their new conductor is. several choirs that were popular, and then all male choruses. But when we think about all male choruses having already developed a couple of years, century beforehand, when we think about the barbershop choruses that developed in the early 1900s, it's perfect, makes perfect sense. They just found some different types of harmonies. And then there were festivals that began to rise. And in in the time period, so 1759 in England, the first festival was about Handel's work. If you think about what you might be learning in another class like music and history, history and theology, and worship arts, in England in the 1700s, they've got also this rise of hymn singing coming up, and they've kind of the society has settled into a Protestant Reformation, post-Reformation feeling, and so having a bunch of people singing together, that's not a bad idea. You got the Birmingham, England, the Lower Rhenish Festival in 1818, stuff all around Europe, the rise of choir singing, the World Peace Jubilee, blah, blah, great stuff going on. So these guys were starting to write to this. Oratorios and other large works, remember from our previous century, the Handel and Haydn oratorios. And what remember also that in our last conversation, we talked about how in the Romantic era, especially in the later 1800s, they're looking at and starting to perform music from the previous music. So that one orchestra that we looked at specifically had shifted from about 80% new composers in the late 1700s to 75% old composers in dead composers in the late 1800s, 100 years later. So a lot of that included these oratorios were written. Elijah was done by Handel, and Mendelssohn also performed or wrote, published in 1846, of his own. The final chorus that sounds kind of like Handel, homophonic rhythmic opening, a rhythmic opening. Amen. We're not going to listen to the Amen, but we're just going to listen to a bit of it. This is He Watching Over Israel for a more based church as a choir offering. Okay. Yeah, I want to go on because church. It's a lot of fun. All these guys, they have a relationship with the church, and they're writing music that fits the church. The Te Deum is a song to God, part songs for groups. Grout, Dinach is for a small choir. To get on, we're going to move on. The Catholic music, the Stabat Mater. The Stabat Mater is a 13th century hymn that was written to Mary, and it is portraying her suffering as she's watching Jesus die on the cross. And you know, it's hard to imagine what that would be like to be watching your child on the cross. But she was doing it, and the Stabat Mater is a hymn that recognizes that. This is a little bit of Rossini. We haven't really talked about Rossini in this time period at this time, but we will. He'll come back in just a little bit. some more that's the Rossini Staudenmatter, if you want to listen to that on your own. It's a beautiful piece. Other things going on in the Protestant church, John Wesley and the Wesleyan movement, the Oxford movement in 1841 was restored, the Hallel chorus. Solomon Sulzer in the synagogue of Germany, writing some Jewish music, and then Dmitry Bortnievsky was in St. Petersburg and wrote some stuff in the Orthodox. So listen to Dmitry Tivana, basso profondo, singing with somebody. Let my prayer arise in Russian, so you will understand it. Listening to some of the Orthodox music over there, it's just absolutely gorgeous. But lest you think that they're all stuffy shirts, here is the same gentleman, Dmitry Tikhonov, as Alexander, his stage name, Alexander Lever, with Nom, N-O-M, and just a little bit of fun music that he did. Good use there, and there we go. What fun, what fun. I was not the person that videotaped that. It was more recent than my visit there, which was my last visit was in 2004, long before the iPhone. All right, so we'll pick it up with chapter 27. Next time we come together, that concludes this. You're going to write down the things that you're going to send those to me, the things that we talked about. And I would like for you to just think about listen to a choir. If you haven't listened to a choir, then just Google choirs singing. Google Mendelssohn's Elijah and watch a piece of that, or you can Google Dmitry Bortniansky. Right there it is. Bortnyansky, Bortnyansky, or Birmingham Music Festival, Bach St. Matthew Passion, Berlioz, Berlioz Requiem or Berlioz Te Deum. Just Google one of those, watch a few minutes, tell me what you watched, what whether it was just choir or was choir and orchestra or was choir and orchestra and quartet or what the makeup of the performance body was and whether you liked it or not. If you did like it, what did you like about it? If you didn't like it, what did you not like? And I look forward to your responses. Have a great day.